Hello and welcome to Adventures in Venueland, an EVMC podcast. Join us for this all-access pass backstage and behind the scenes with some of the brightest minds that cross the scope of the live event industry. I'm Dave Rettelberger.
And I'm Paul Hooper. We'll introduce you to incredible guests who journey with us as we dive deep into the world of venues, tours, festivals, and everything in between. Grab your laminate and meet us in Venueland.
Greetings and welcome to a third annual. I was going to do the whole thing in a spooky voice, but I just can't do it. Hey, welcome to our third annual Halloween episode of Adventures in Venueland, an EVMC podcast. I'm Dave Rettelberger, and along with my super spooky co-host, Paul Hooper. Today's episode is a little bit different. It's one of our detour or side trip episodes, but yeah, it's our third annual Halloween episode. We take a look at kind of a spooky topic here in the live events industry. And Paul, would you be so kind as to introduce our guest today?
But of course, I also can't sustain that more than 3 words myself. So, yeah, we're joined by our friend Brian Kitts, Chief Marketing and Business Development Officer for Red Rocks Amphitheatre and Denver Performing Arts Complex, which you may have heard on a previous episode. But of course, today we are talking about hauntings, UFOs, all the fun things that go bump in the night, which apparently can be found at Red Rocks, among the other beautiful concerts. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. That's the end of my spooky voice. It's 2 words.
Before we get into all the stories here with you, you said your season is still rocking here late in October, and you're kind of still moving a few snowflakes coming down.
You know what? The snowflakes are not coming down yet, but it could happen any day. You know, we're going to be close to 80 today. We will be, we're going to close out the season with Tiesto, I think on the 17th of November.
Wow. Okay.
So it's late.
Yeah,
it's late. It is.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for making time for us. When Paul and I love this episode where we get to talk to people about, some of the spooky stuff that goes on behind the scenes, or rumors and stories and all kinds of stuff. And of course, just having been to Red Rocks, I had no idea. You guys have a cemetery there on site?
There is a cemetery on site. It is part of the town of Morrison, which is adjacent to Red Rocks. And, I think one of the interesting things about places like ours is that, the venue has been open for 83 years. Prior to that, 300 people worked here 4 years straight as part of the Work Projects Administration, carving red rocks out of the side of the mountain. There had been activity here since the early 1900s, just in terms of concerts, and then obviously Native Americans on site for, centuries before that. So I think any place with that kind of history, the formal cemetery or, the cemeteries that you don't know are there.
Right.
Spirits, this is supposed to be an energy vortex over Red Rocks, but the spirits of performers and fans past are, everywhere.
It's a magical place, but yeah, let's kind of, I guess, dive into some of these stories. So I don't know a whole lot about it, but I've heard about this, is it a headless hatchet woman? She headless, sometimes headless when she chooses to be.
Let's save her for a second. Let's talk about UFOs first.
UFOs.
Okay?
Okay. We're going to save the best for last.
Yeah. The thing is, I think it's like your mama told you, nothing good ever happens after midnight. And I think that what we're going to talk about today obviously takes place when the moon is out. And, this most recent episode was just this year, and it picked up a lot of national press where, it's 1:00 in the morning and some of our staff are cleaning up after the all-time low show. This is June 5th. And they swear that they see a UFO, big disc shaped over the venue for 30 seconds,
What?
3 rows of windows, and they said there's no mistaking it for a weather balloon. They know what they saw. They reported it to the organization that actually tracks UFO sightings. And it's one of those things that, again, there were a dozen people there who swore that they saw it late at night.
Yeah, this is not like two guys that are, maybe been working a little bit too long at
Hanging out
a
at
Fish
a Grateful
concert,
Dead
smelling some
yeah.
stuff.
Or fans who had been
Right.
playing too long.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
That's pretty. So, do we think these aliens are big fans of All Time Low? Is that what we think? They just showed up to the show late, like so many other fans.
Well, it could be that they were very late. Well, I think any venue is always happy for the attention, and when USA Today wrote about it and Newsweek, we're happy to welcome fans from wherever they are, and if the Red Rocks reputation is intergalactic, that makes me as a marketing guy even happier. We'll welcome anybody until they
got to figure out how to sell them tickets, right?
Welcome them until they try and eat us. So
what's neat about this is the ship. I mean, when you have over a dozen people seeing it, the descriptions that you heard from people, how it had like 3 levels of windows, and how it didn't just fly away, it just kind of like disappeared.
Yes.
And it sounds like people were very clearly like this was not a blimp or an airplane. This was something we've never seen before.
Correct.
That is wild.
That said, in this day and age, nobody took a picture of it.
Right.
How does that happen?
We like to think our staff is so well trained to not take pictures of stuff that's not open to the public. So
there you go.
That's plausible. That's plausible.
They probably thought it was just some show that was loading in the next day, that they're testing out.
Brick Floyd or something.
Yes.
So is this one of many sightings? Have there been other ones over the years?
Not that I know of at Red Rocks. I think, the cool thing about it is it's one of those nighttime venues because it's obviously outdoors, but I don't know of other UFO sightings specific to the venue. That said, lots of stuff happens when the moon is full. And, I think that's where you start to hear the stories about the Hatchet Woman. This is one of those enduring myths around Red Rocks. And, it's chilling. And this goes actually back to 1905 when a woman by the name of Mrs. Johnson had been living in the area with her husband. They fell into poverty and sort of moved from shack to shack until he passed away. She was left sort of on her own, and to make do, she was moving again from shack to shack, and eventually ended up living in some of the caves that are around the rocks that form Red Rocks. The legend starts to take off because she actually is out hunting wildlife with a hatchet. But as she's losing everything, including her mind, she becomes more and more unhinged. And, especially as she's walking around late at night hunting, she has pulled her shawl up over her head so that she looks headless. And so, what could go wrong if you've got a, woman with a shawl over her head and a bloody hatchet walking around? Eventually she roams closer and closer to town and closer to where the venue would eventually be, because at this point, Red Rocks has not been built yet. And she becomes blamed for anybody who turns up dead, whether it's just a drunk that is frozen to death or somebody who has fallen unexpectedly. And so, she becomes part of the lore along with the ghosts of miners who are around here. She eventually passes away, but her body is never found. And so even now she's blamed for unexpected whispering as you're walking near that cemetery near Red Rocks, or, as you're sort of roaming around in the foothills around Red Rocks, especially late at night. And People swear that they have seen and heard her, especially if you're walking alone, or if you're sitting in your car smoking or making out or doing stuff. She doesn't like that. And so all of a sudden, if you hear something coming at you out of the dark and see something flashing, it's, you should probably think that it's the hatchet lady, the headless hatchet lady coming after you.
This is good motivation for you all to make sure that the public doesn't do anything you don't want them to be doing in the parking lot. The headless hatchet lady is after you.
The thing is,
quit defacing the rocks.
But you know what? This is a good thing for parents to.
Yes.
Kids
exactly.
Don't be making out in cars because the hatchet lady's going to get you.
Yes. You won't be able to whistle.
I heard, in an older version, hatchet lady was kind of despised young love and wanted to scare couples, but I guess now more frequently she's just kind of spotted, sometimes just enjoying the show.
Yeah. Just like everybody else.
Can you blame
fans
her?
Are fans, yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned, her presence on the hiking trails, but, for those who haven't been, or even if you've been to a show there, you may not be aware of all the hiking trails around. But I guess there are a lot of stories about some different ghosts and some hauntings throughout the trails.
Yeah. Like I said, this is an area that's been inhabited for hundreds of years. And, especially as Denver developed, the activity around here, really picked up. And so, it's not just the hatchet lady, it's the ghosts of miners and the ghosts of, hikers that have wandered off and never been seen again, because it's, it is a wild area with not a lot of cars and not a lot of homes and, lots of stuff that you hear at night, but you don't necessarily see.
Chilling.
It is. And I guess that sort of leads to the last thing, which I actually think is probably, the most terrifying thing of all, and it is the ghost rattler.
Ooh, ghost rattler.
The ghost rattler, this time of year when Colorado starts to cool off, the western diamondback rattlesnake gets ready for the winter. And, every April when we open the venue, we actually post rattlesnake warnings, because when they're active and they're, jumping around, people on the trails can sneak up on them. And it's dangerous. The thing about Red Rocks is you're as likely to see rattlesnakes and foxes and deer and, the occasional bear or bobcat as you are, a fan. So they're very active in the springtime, but in the fall, they really start to slow down. And so as they get ready for winter, the snake sheds its skin one last time, and it turns this really ghostly white. When the sun goes down and the moon comes up, you can imagine what that looks like. And to make it even more frightening is that moonlight starts refracting in its eyes, and the white snake gets glowing red eyes. Then on top of that, because it's a cold-blooded creature, the body starts slowing down, and so it moves a lot more quietly and a lot more slowly. And so, for all intents and purposes, it is moving like a zombie rattlesnake. And so, its rattle is a little bit slower and softer than it would be. It's like a heartbeat slowing down. And what happens is fans that are walking back to their cars after a show through the fields, think that they're just hearing the dried grasses blowing. But in fact, it's that slow rattle of the ghost rattler. But by then it's too late. The ghost rattler's venom, though, isn't what it was at one time by this time of the year. And so, even if that, sort of ghostly white snake with the red eyes sort of sneaks up on you instead of vice versa, fans end up going to bed with dry mouths and headaches. But it's not always fatal. But the ghost rattler can be deadly at night, and some fans are never going to know what bit them.
Ooh,
that's fun.
That is cool. I'm imagining this refracting snake with red eyes that's just slowly click, 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 click.
White with red eyes through the grass.
Ooh. Yeah, right.
Brian, I've heard some stories too that when you first pull up to Red Rocks, you go by this building, the Trading Post.
Yeah.
right? The trading post. And I don't know, what do you guys use that for now?
That is there are bathrooms there, and it is a literal trading post, just like it was in the 1920s and 30s. It's t-shirts and merch and stuff.
I've heard some stories that there have been some haunted sightings there. My favorite story that I heard is that there's rumors of everything from merch going missing, doorknobs jiggling, boxes flying across the room. But what I love is the story that souvenir mugs with the name
Randy.
have a tendency to like just fall off the shelf and break on a semi-regular basis.
Yeah.
Any truth to that?
There's a little bit of truth in all of these, isn't there?
Yes, right. Yeah, one of my favorite places at Red Rocks is the secret tunnel.
Yeah.
And if ever there was a place that it may not be haunted, but it definitely has a place that I would not want to be at by myself in the dark kind of vibe, because there's so many like little turns. But can you kind of explain the secret tunnel for folks who've never had the pleasure to walk through there?
Sure. The tunnel leads from the backstage area up to the mix booth, and it's dark. It is completely underground. And so the few little rays of light that get through are through cracks that are, from the tunnel up into the seating area. But it's largely dark. And when you walk in there, so the cool thing about it is that passage is where we ask anybody who's with a band to go ahead and sign their name. And so you're going to see, Van Morrison and Mariah Carey and, Zach Brown and, everybody who plays at Red Rocks. You're going to see their autographs. But when you walk in there, it is deathly quiet. It is pitch dark, and it's cold.
Yeah.
And so there's a real, I don't want to say it's sinister, but, I think it's as close to being in a tomb as you're likely to get, dark and cold and smells
surrounded
a little
by
bit
this
musty.
rock. Yeah.
Paul Hooper, did you sign the wall?
I don't know if I'm legally allowed to say that, but
You're not.
there. Yes. Well, then
Good choice, Paul.
we'll leave it up for mystery. Maybe if I actually sell out the venue one day, then when we bring the podcast there and sell it out 10 years from now,
That'd
then we can
awesome.
officially sign it. Yeah.
I think one of the cool things about that is that it's a little bit of a nod, unintentional nod, but that tunnel leads from the backstage area, and the backstage area is actually the orchestra pit at a time when you needed orchestra pits.
Oh, cool.
And so it's directly under the stage. And, again, I think speaks to the spirits of who has played there in the past. You walk through that area and it's, I think, feel the presence of hundreds of orchestra members who played there in the 1940s and 50s before, rock took over and you actually were up on stage. So
Paul and I have definitely had the pleasure of touring venues from coast to coast, and the secret tunnel at Red Rocks is definitely a highlight. And if you want to visualize it, you can Google it because there are pictures out there on the interwebs. But some great stuff there. It definitely has a very cool vibe, wouldn't you say, Paul?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's really cool. It is kind of chilling in some ways, but it is very just steeped in history because, of course, as we all know, there's so many legendary concerts that have happened at Red Rocks. There's films that have been filmed there, albums, endless albums that have been recorded there. So to see some of those names of those artists that have played there over the years written on this wall, I mean, it's just a really cool, unique thing that you would never see at any other venue.
Brian, if somebody wanted to learn more about Red Rocks or anything that you got going on, anything plugs you want to throw out there?
Of course. redrocksonline.com. I love it when venue people come through, say hi. We're always happy to show people around. We've already started announcing shows for next year. So we're going to have another 200 plus shows in 2025, presumably wrapping up this season at some point.
I know. Well, we hope you get plenty of rest while you can before
don't let the ghosts keep you up at night, my friend.
We will.
Exactly.
Well, and again, I think that's points to the history of the venue that, there's a lot of happy stuff that happens on stage, but, in the building of the venue and the area, other stuff has happened in between the ghost rattlers and the hatchet lady and the UFOs. There's a lot of other vibes that are there as well.
A lot of great vibes too. Absolutely. If you've not been, it's definitely worth making the trip. Brian, thank you so much for the time today, and best of luck here as you wrap up what's been another incredible year.
Thanks, guys. Happy Halloween.
Yes.
Yeah.
And big thanks to everybody for listening to this special episode of Adventures in Venueland. Remember, you can subscribe and find more episodes wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We do love your 5-star reviews, so you can help others find us. Until the next adventure. That was terrible still. I think I'm sound like Count Chocula. I'm Dave Rettelberger.
And I'm Paul Hooper. Happy Halloween.
Adventures in Venueland is a side project of the Event and Venue Marketing Conference, a marketing conference that brings together diversified event and venue professionals to cultivate education, collaboration, and innovation for the growing sports and live entertainment industry. Find out more at eventvenuemarketing.com.
Audio editing and mixing by Camille Faulkner.
Design and digital advertising by Megan Ebeck.
Copywriting and publicity by Samantha Marker.
Guest booking and brand strategies by Paul Hooper.
Guest research by Dave Rettelberger.
Marketing strategies by Paul Hooper, Megan Ebeck, and Samantha Marker. Thanks for joining us. Until the next adventure.